Hi, this is Literature and Pictures, and today is May 1st, which means it's been exactly 1 month since Ed Piskor passed away. And I don't want to comment on his death, but instead I want to celebrate his life. Ed was 41 years old, the same age as me, and similar to Ed, I grew up with a love for hip-hop. To honor him and his legacy, I want to take a look at the hip-hop family tree that came out in 4 volumes. They're all collected in here in this beautiful omnibus with this shiny gold cover. This book is widely considered to be his magnum opus. I grew up with rap music in the 90s, so looking back at the beginnings here, the years from 73 to 85 means to look back at the time before I discovered hip-hop. Nevertheless, many names in here are familiar, others are not. So let's take a stroll down memory lane, and I'll switch cameras and try to take you on a journey through this book and the beginnings of hip-hop. Let's do this. First of all, let's admire this beautiful gold foil cover here with just Flash and the letters being excluded, and then the background and Flash highlights here in gold foil. Just beautiful, beautiful concept for this omnibus. You got the space, kind of reminds you of Africa Bambaataa. And the Hip Hop Family Tree, the omnibus by Fantagraphics. You have Ed Piskor as the writer and illustrator. And some comments here, some blurbs by Bismarcky and DMC. The omnibus came out last year, 2023, after the initial series was released in 4 volumes over multiple years between 2012 and 2015, and then Fantagraphics picked it up and republished it between 2013 2016, and then we got this beautiful omnibus here, 2023. You got the side A with all of the content, an introduction by Charlie Ahern. Book 1, 2, 3, 4. Book 1 basically covers 8 years, 73 to 81. And book 2, 2 years, 81 to 83. Book 3, the next year, and then a consecutive year in book 4. I guess while writing this, Ed had the plan to continue the series, but as it ballooned out towards the end, I think the work that he would have had to put in there became so big that he said, no, we're good here. We are covering the first 12 years, the first decade plus some, and leave it at that. And then you have lots of extras, so that's what's called side B here. And afterward, the cover gallery, trading cards, enlarged in this omnibus here, and a bunch of other stuff, but we'll get there. Introduction by Charlie Ahern, and Charlie is the creator, the director of Wild Style, the first movie incorporating hip-hop. All right, and we dive right into book 1. So how I want to do this is going through some content, not everything, but highlighting some of the important dates. I hope to be able to sample in some stuff and art, so that I want to cover what we have here and then try to put in some of the music, some of the samples, to kind of fill this with life. Not that it needs any life, because through Ed's art, I think the stories come to life already. And we're kicking things off with the originator. So how did hip-hop start? And hip-hop being a term that only was created later. What started off was in the 70s, early 70s, you basically had bands that were making music with real instruments. You had disco, and then you had poor neighborhoods where people didn't have money to have their own instruments. And you had DJs that started creating their own stuff. And the first one was DJ Kool Herc. DJ Kool Herc started throwing house parties here in the Bronx, and kind of sampling snippets, mixing songs together.
What singled out Herc as a DJ was his keen eye for crowd reaction. He noticed that the energy on the dance floor hit a peak during the instrumental breaks in the records, the point when the singing stops and the music carries on. From this simple observation, Herc came up with an idea that would become the basis of hip-hop.
One night, I'm waiting for the record to play out. I said, I wonder if I put that to myself. I said, if they're waiting for this particular break and I have a couple more records that's got the same breakup in it, I wonder how would it be if I put them all together. And I told them, I said, I'm going to try something new tonight. I'm going to call it a merry-go-round.
Herc's merry-go-round meant that instead of playing whole records, he would play just the instrumental breaks, mixing between them to create a continuous dance rhythm.
I started out with James Brown, clap your hand, stomp your feet.
He was using existing songs, disco, breakbeats, funk music that he was able to merge together, create new stuff, create a whole set for parties here. So instead of just playing song after song, he merged some of those, and he was able to kind of create new techniques with moving the needle on the vinyl in different ways than it had been done before. You had the Zulu Nation route, African Bambaataa, who kind of pacified some of the gangs and provided them a haven and alternative, and kind of tried to build the culture from within. And kind of the early DJs here being covered in this volume. Again, DJ Kool Herc as the first one, but then you have others breaking out and doing the same thing in different neighborhoods. So what you have here is basically the Bronx being divided up in different territories. You have Grandmaster Flash, Kool Herc, DJ Breakout, Africa Bambaataa, who are kind of covering their neighborhoods, throwing parties, performing in their neighborhoods on the streets and what would later become nightclubs, just creating the culture that way. But DJ Kool Herc really being the one where other neighborhoods would flock to as well, because he was the first one. His parties were infamous, and kind of people came to see him. It was like there was a hype around his parties, right? And then you had others, Grandmaster Flash, who were just perfectionating that art of DJing in their own neighborhoods. So DJing is really the first kickoff, the first spark that sparked the hip-hop culture. Again, at this point it wasn't called hip-hop, that came later, but DJing, breaking the beats, and kind of using existing vinyls and existing disco beats and breaking them up in a way that just was different for its time, that had a different feel to it, a different break to it. And you had out of that the parties forming from the DJing on the beats, people dancing differently. It's what created breakdance. At some point, people wanted to fill those beats with lyrics, and you had the first rappers, the first MCs starting, and you had graffiti as an art form developing as well. That was sprayed not only on walls, but especially on trains. You have like a scene here, the infamous Campbell soup can train, that's also being featured in Wild Style, a movie that we're going to talk about in a bit. But that's how the culture was formed in the early to mid 70s. I'll skip here a little bit. and get to where Wildstyle is basically in, not pre-production, but the first ideas of Wildstyle are being created with Fab Five Freddy and Goldie of all bands. And so Goldie kind of being involved in the hip-hop culture here through Freddy. And from the success on the streets, from the popularity on the streets, you had early players here that wanted to make a dime off of that. One of them was Sylvia Robinson, who would later become basically the owner, founder of Sugar Hill Records, and the creative mind, or the mind behind Sugar Hill Gang. Sugar Hill Gang not being one of the bands that were on the streets. So you had Grandmaster Flash, Africa Bambaataa, Lovebug Starsky, Russell Simmons, Bobby Robinson, and others that were known on the streets, that were known to be DJs, MCs. And then you had a couple of bands there too, or like formations, I should say, of DJ, MC combinations. But suddenly you had someone producing a song which would become famous for the first rap song on record. So she would go on and create Sugar Hill Gang, picking different MCs and putting together Rapper's Delight. That was not a band up until this point. The lyrics weren't even written by all of them. Hank took his lyrics basically from one of his buddies here. And you have all the known MCs or players in the industry being confused about what was going on.
So the Sugar Hill Gang was formed with three guys who just met. They laid down the 15-minute version of Rapper's Delight in just one take. But there were some hitches. The music track had been sampled directly from the song Good Times by Chic, and Hank was using rhymes written by Grandmaster Caz, an artist he actually managed. With the meteoric success of Rapper's Delight, Chic co-founder Nile Rodgers threatened to sue and was eventually credited as a writer and paid royalties. Grandmaster Caz took no action and never got credit or royalties. At its peak, Rapper's Delight was selling 50,000 records a day. To listen to the lyrics is to hear hip-hop taking its first steps into the mainstream.
And so there was much confusion around who was behind Sugar Hill Gang. Well, none of the ones that were known. Funky 4+1 More and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. They had a way different style, a little bit more aggressive, while the Funky 4+1 were more mellow. And you had those rap parties or MC DJ parties all over the Bronx, and by now New York, really. New York City in different neighborhoods, from Long Island to Queens. And then people just trying to find ways of how to make their own records, pressing their own vinyls, and trying to replicate the success of Sugar Hill Gang. And with the success of Sugar Hill Gang with Sylvia Robinson, who kind of, again, commercialized hip-hop and kind of brought it to the next level, can be seen here how that looked like. So you had basically before Enjoy Records, and then players there leaving, bands leaving them, signing with Sugar Hill Records. The Funky 4+1, how they looked prior to Sugar Hill Records, and then how they transformed here. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, kind of the same. They had like funny name sweaters, and then getting more funky, getting more dressed up here after going to Sugar Hill. And all of that, keep in mind, is still in the 70s. You come from the disco era, and disco really being the predecessor to rap. So rap developed out of disco beats. disco instrumentals and samples, that then beats were broken up, melodies were kept on. And then if you listen to any of the old stuff from the 70s, that's disco music with rapping on top of it, breaking the beats up in a different way that kind of hit differently. But the fundamentals were disco, and you see that in their clothing as well. And the culture was very much disco. That would later change when Run DMC entered the stage. But for now, that was pretty much disco break beats with MCing on top. You get the backstory of Rick Rubin here from an early age, and then throughout the book, him and Russell Simmons are the ones that kind of keep the red line throughout the book, kind of shifting to them as they later on formed Def Jam. But here, just being a teenager, trying to get into jams, get into the music, learning about the music. Afrika Bambaataa initially stayed within his Zulu nation. They didn't produce any records. They were very much of the belief that hip-hop should stay in the community, and was focused around bringing the community together and having parties or staying in the neighborhoods. Later on, with commercial success, they also entered that stage and commercialized the music. But Afrika Bambaataa, founding Zulu Nation and kind of unifying all of those MCs and DJs behind him. Definitely a big influence on hip hop as a whole, even though the name might not be as known as Grandmaster Flash or Run DMC or others that followed later. And then you get, every now and then throughout the book, you get some folks here featured when they were kids, based on tellings where they were when those people from the first generation were performing, when those songs came out. You have Lawrence Parker, basically KRS-One, covered here when he was a kid. He would later on become a bigger part. You get Dr. Dre in here as well, on a different page, when he was a kid, and later on a little bit more. I think Ed Piskor was setting those up to be the topics of future volumes, but never got there. But overall, it's a fun Easter egg to see those youngsters throughout the book. And then here you have Charlie Ahern entering the stage, with Wild Style being in the making. So we're in 81 now. We've left the 70s. In the early 80s, you had more jams. You had people now charging entry coverage fees to get in, with the Cold Crush Brothers versus the Fantastic Romantics, and kind of jams being thrown, competitions being held. And one of those early ones, here you had MC competitions, and usually it had always been this cat here, Busy Bee Starsky, who had been winning all of those MC competitions. But he kind of had a set that was similar from performance to performance. Kind of what you hear in Rapper's Delight, like the style, right? Not the lyrics, but the style. Very disco-y, very happy, interacting with the crowd, always asking the same questions. He had this thing where he was like asking for what everyone's zodiac sign was, asking if everyone can please scream like ho and hey and say ho ho and la di da and all of that. So Busy Bee Starsky was kind of a party rocker at this time. But that night in 81, you had this other kid, Cool Mo D, coming on stage and entering the competition. And he completely took Starsky apart. I think there's a sound recording of that night. I'll put that in here in a second. But Forget about Nas versus Jay-Z. Forget about Notorious B.I.G. versus Tupac. Like, this is the original battle rap here. He took him apart. He handed it to him. And yeah, I'll just let you guys listen into this stuff.
My man Busy B. Starsky. How many people think Busy B. Starsky rocked the house? I hear that in the place to be. Yeah. But if y'all notice it or not, you know, I heard a lot of shit, you know, Busy B's popping shit, saying he'll take out any MC and all that. I give it to the man, he know how to rock the crowd, but when it come to having rhymes, no way he can fuck around, and I'm gonna prove that right now. In the place to be MC, Cool Mo D, the coolest of the cool, can't nobody rock like me. Remember this. Cold Crush Floor in the house, my man LA Sunshine in the place to be, we gonna have a little fun. Have a little fun. DJ Lee, you think you got it together yet? 1, 2... 1 for the treble, 2 for the bass. Come on, easy, Lee, and let's rock the plane. 1, 2, 1, 2. Doing the do now. Hold on, Busy B, I don't mean to be bold, but put that ball bullshit on hold. We gonna get right down to the nitty gritty. Gonna tell you a little something why you ain't shit. It ain't an empty drop that you don't hug. You even bitch your name from the love bug. And not a fight a nigga's name is some low down shit. If you was money, man, you be counterfeit. I gotta give it to you, though you can rock. But everybody know you're on the furious dock. And I remember Busy from the olden times when my man Tony G used to sell your rhymes. Remember that rhyme called Diddy Bar Diddy? Man, goddamn, that shit was a pity. Too hot to try, hit to rock a spot. Tony G rock it whether you like it or not. He begged for the rhyme, asked for it twice. He said, Spoonie G, I'll buy it any price. When Spoonie finally told it, oh, what a relief. Busy B stole it like a fucking thief. Came out rocking the party jaws. Got everybody thinking that rhyme's yours. Every time I hear it, I throw a fit. Party after party, the same old shit. Record after record, rhyme after rhyme. Always wanna know your zodiac sign. He changed the shit to the favorite G. Come on, Busy B, tell me what that means. Hold on, brother man, don't you say nothing. I'm not finished yet, I gotta tell you something. Too hot to trot, I'm here to rock the spot. I'm gonna rock your ass whether you like it or not. He made it up, take your title right on the spot. How can I take a title you ain't got? You're not number one, you're not even the best. And you can't win no real MC contest. Celebrity clubs and bullshit like those. Those are kind of stuff that everybody knows. Celebrity clubs are those the kind you can win. It's all set up before we come in. But in a battle like this, you know you lose. Between me and you, who do you think they'll choose? Well, if you think it's you, I got bad news. Because to hear your name, you're gonna hear some moves. Cause you're faking the funk, cause you're faking the funk. And at the end of this rhyme, you can call me Uncle Modi Rock, shop the house. Call me Uncle, rock the house. Like this, y'all, like this, y'all. Yeah. Like this, it's like this, y'all. Now you popcorn, peanut, toy MCs. Never, ever heard no rhymes like these. Cause my intent from the time I spend is to say those rhymes that I invent. And for your pleasure, a rhyme you'll treasure. Please don't try, cause you can't measure. The length or time can't touch the rhyme. Hit hot, don't stop, cause you know I'm an MC supreme and I'm one of a kind. If you search real hard, I'm sure you'll find ain't another MC who can rhyme like this. Not your mother or your father, aunt, brother or your sis. Sit back and enjoy, don't try to bite. Cause it's very hard to say any rhyme I write. But do it like this, do it like that. Concentrate real hard and get the rhyme down pat. No matter how hard you try, you'll see. You'll get your mind in the mind and can't say it like me. But you wanna be, busy wanna be. And you know we wanna be another Kumo D. So let's all chant because you know you can. Everybody salute to the new MC champ. It's like this, y'all, like this, y'all, like this, it's like this, y'all. Now that bar did the dang, sound pretty good, but it ain't no thing. I'm the super scooper party pooper member, super disco breaker running. Man will never make a mistake and rap alone. I'm not a bull, baddest man you ever saw. Money make an earthquake, a man who gets the party shaking.
Complication, stimulation, man who's gonna rock the nation. Rhyme, battle time. My opponent, he's on mine. I'm not the baddest, when I win, I am the guy. No beginner, not a sinner on the microphone.
Right, that was really the first battle rap there, and kind of a foreshadowing of how the music would develop. Like, really, battle rap wouldn't make it on the scene too much until Run DMC entered the stage a couple of years later. But that was the initial battle rap, or the first recording of someone just taking someone lyrically apart there. You again have Fab Five Freddy here with singer of Blondie, collaborating and kind of preparing what would turn into Wild Style. And if you haven't watched Wild Style, I highly recommend it, because it's, again, document of history, document of where hip hop was at that time in the early 80s. Definitely recommend that one. And then we are entering the time period from 81 to 83. So we are in book 2 right now. And I'll skip a few pages here and want to talk about Zulu Nation. So that's where you really have Africa Bambaataa also now playing clubs, and kind of the community even getting closer and closer together. You have the Cold Crush, you have Roxy as like the venue where things came together. With Rick Rubin, you had the Beastie Boys here, and Russell Simmons, who would later become manager of Def Jam. Curtis Blow here, I haven't talked about him yet, but where things would just culminate, and the community being closer together and able to collaborate. You get a few pages where the Wild Style movie is summarized and kind of like explained a little bit behind the scenes what happened here and how things came together, who those people are, who's playing who in the movie. And then the venue, that was kind of, if you've watched the movie, in the end there's a big jam, kind of an illegal venue. They didn't get the permit regardless. They just printed flyers and had a big jam there in the end of the movie. I think that stretched over 2 days or so. And yeah, you had Wild Style that popularized hip hop even more. And now we're getting to the Beasties. So the Beastie Boys here in their initial formation, kind of being discovered, making friends with Rick Rubin, and kind of switching from punk rock to, well, creating their own crossover, right? It's like a rock, punk, hip hop, rap crossover that they'd create. And if you want to know more about the Beastie Boys origin story and how that unfolded there, I can highly recommend the Beastie Boys Story, which is a documentary on Apple TV that came out in 2020. You basically have Mike D and Ed Rock talking about the beginnings of the Beastie Boys. All of that is covered in here as well, but like in that show, explained in more detail and from their perspective. Obviously without MCA, since that came out in 2020, and unfortunately he passed away prior to that. But yeah, you have Ed Rock here, who would later join the band. At this point, there was just Adam Yauch, Michael Diamond, Kate Schellenbach, and John Barry. John Barry would go AWOL first, and then later Kate was kind of kicked out by their manager, as a woman was not considered to be appropriate for the band style that they were going for. But yeah, Ed Rock joined later. And yeah, that's around the time where all of that stuff happens. You have Grandmaster Flash and others going out and making records in 82. Skip a little bit here. A wonderful picture of the Zulu Nation with Africa Bambaataa here, Tommy Boy and others. How some wanted to imitate Jackson 5, and how the message was created. Grandmaster Flash, him initially not being happy with the idea, but Sylvia Robinson again trying to make money, giving him a record to record, and Grandmaster Flash here taking that opportunity, creating the message. A legendary track. Again, I don't think he was too happy with how it turned out and how they came together, because yeah, on vinyl, it was very difficult to promote DJs. You had to have MCs, and he was a DJ. So here he kind of takes on that role as well, just to stand out, to bring his name forward. You have the early beginnings of Dr. Dre here as a DJ, and MC Chuck D is in the place to be. Wonderful. Just good old stuff. Here you get a little bit of a backstory of the movie Downtown 81, which wouldn't come out until 20 years later in the year 2000, but really being recorded in 81, and a little bit of why that was, so that the material was recovered later. And then you get like kind of those two panels being kind of considered now or after this story happens. So again, the years here in the early 80s, and then you get those ones of 2000 or 2003 here, a few years after the movie came out in the year 2000. Cool Kyle, the star child, finding out from Sylvia that the movie actually was released. Afrika Bambaataa here after releasing Planet Rock and working on Sonic Force. And here have young Parker here, Lawrence Parker again, KRS-One. He isn't called KRS-One at this point. We'll later find out how he got to his name. Just here allures to his youth, his childhood, when he left home because his mom was a mess, his brother left. So he hang out at the homeless shelter and became kind of Krishna, was called Krishna by those homeless here in response to him being Hare Krishna. He would say, like, don't call me Krishna. It would be like, you're calling me Jesus. But those folks don't really caring about that. And then so from Krishna, again, we find that out later. If I get to that page, we'll talk about that then. But from Krishna to KRS, and then later KRS-One. But those were his beginnings here on the streets of New York. And then the beginning of Def Jam recordings, Def Jam Records, here being founded by Rick Rubin and the Beastie Boys doing Beastie Boys things. All right, and I think we're getting closer to Run DMC. Yep. And yeah, I got a little bit ahead of myself. So skipping back here to the beginnings of Run DMC, or Run and DMC, but where they are really in the studio, and they didn't want to have any guitars or any disco influence on it, so they wanted to strip that beat down, and then you got It's Like That, and with the B-side of Soccer MCs, that really was the first battle track, and established MCs felt offended by it and had to respond later on. Melly Mel did, I think, and yeah, Run DMC just entering the stage here, recording their record. Russell Simmons, we got a record here. We got a record, we can tell. Ed did him dirty a little bit. I mean, yeah, he had that little speech impairment, but he does not look like that. I don't know. Throughout the book, I figured Ed was not happy with the managers, so Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin. I mean, without them, hip-hop wouldn't be where it is today, so I think he did them dirty a little bit in this book, but nonetheless, I think they're fine. They made enough money. Maybe that's also why. All right, Run DMC gets a new outfit and a new DJ, and we're off to the years 1983 to 84, where we have a little bit more of the other aspects of hip-hop covered. So we're also entering breakdancing coverage and graffiti coverage a little bit more. We have Style Wars coming out. Style Wars being a movie that is mostly centered around graffiti, and kind of those pages covering a little bit of the movie here, the movie premiere, and what they did, what the audience did to the bathroom after, that they couldn't air the movie there anymore, and kind of going from there. We're getting to Public Enemy, how Public Enemy kind of entered this scene. You have MC Chuck D and Flavor Flav doing their own things, and then kind of joining efforts. Joining efforts here. Well, Flavor Show, MC, DJ Flavor Show, and how they're teaming up, producing their record. And then you basically end up with Public Enemy. Before they were called Public Enemy, obviously they brought out that record, Public Enemy #1. That just hit differently at this time and became a success, so much so that they named the band after the group after that single. So from Public Enemy #1 just to Public Enemy. You skip here again or switch over to KRS again because he joined the buddy of his going out spraying. That's his name, KRS. Later realized, well, there's so many others with similar letters, KS, Cras, Chris, CRS, that he said, I'm better than yours, I'm KRS1. That's how he got his name here. So from just being called Krishna, him saying, you shouldn't call me Krishna, adopting that nickname, shortening Krishna to KRS, and then KRS1 because he was the best at it. The Beastie Boys being introduced to the Brass Monkey drink. Later on, they would make a song about it in a good old Beastie Boy fashion. And you have more records being produced. Other acts that were big during this time, Prince, MJ, and Run DMC, bringing out their first album. Todd. Who's Todd? Well, Todd is none other than LL Cool J, who kept sending his tape to Rick Rubin, and you have the Beasties and Rick Rubin hanging out together and just picking up that tape and them liking it, and then Rick calling Todd back, and Todd is like, well, Mom, or Grandma, it's not Flip Duggan, it's Rick Rubin. Dugan, Flip Dugan, Rick Rubin. However, Ed wants to play this joke. But yeah, and then him kind of attaching himself to Def Jam Records, being there when needed. And yeah, the origin of LL Cool J, again, switching over to KRS-One, who's doing all kinds of illegal stuff, getting pulled over, and does his first 60 days in detention or jail, or what does it? 60 days in the Bronx House of Detention. There you go. And then here, yeah, LL Cool J doing his thing, getting more and more opportunities, and Rick Rubin gave him his style as well. All right. There's other stuff in here that I flew over. I think the breakdancing, those pages here is the Roxanne battle, but I'll skip over that. Entering Volume 4, and Volume 4 is kind of a summary, so instead of going over the summary and some backflashes here, I'll just want to talk about more of some other stuff. So you have like graffiti magazines that were graffiti books that were published during this time. Early on, I think we had on some pages the Rocksteady crew. You have some breakdancing here. That's for a feature film Breaking, but with regards to breakdance, I think the Rocksteady crew has always been very popular. They were featured in Wild Style and other early materials. So I always love that one song, so I'll try to put that in here and hopefully YouTube doesn't block my video. I love the Rocksteady crew. And yeah, those aspects breaking, and I was just talking about it, I was by accident, so just talking about a battle here, Beat Street, talking about Beat Street and how they completely changed things up that they shouldn't have changed up. So what the movie envisions and displays is how hip-hoppers were taking electricity for their parties from the city, when in reality they didn't have to climb any lamps or any poles, so they were just plugging it in down there. And the movie portrays it as this crazy escapade. But yeah, anyways, in Beat Street you also have the Rocksteady crew featured. So I could have put that sample in here. I did that a second ago, so no worries about that. And Beat Street kind of, unfortunately, putting too much focus on the story, on the actors instead of the culture itself, but nonetheless a very important movie. You get the Beastie Boys again, well, and them opening for Madonna on the Virgin show, or like a Virgin show, I don't know, how was that Madonna tour called back then? Yeah, them opening for Madonna, or Madonna calling Russell Simmons, asking who should open for Madonna. He's like, Run DMC costs $50,000 a night. How about the Fat Boys? It's like, no. How about the Beastie Boys? Beastie Boys sounds edgy. We'll draft the contracts, and then the Beasties opening up for Madonna. But before they do so, here I want to just highlight this a little bit. With LAPD using the Batarang in the poor neighborhoods, in the ghettos, and then Toddy T making a song, Batarang, that became kind of an anthem there. Here you have the Move organization that was violently removed from their neighborhood, and then in '85 being bombed. There are videos about that out there. But at the same time, there was a song that was released with the infamous line, the roof is on fire, we don't need no water.
Let's make some noise! Let's make some noise, come on! The roof is on fire! We don't need no water, let that motherfucker burn! Burn, motherfucker, burn!
Which made that famous, and that was sampled a lot later on, and it kind of became pop culture history here as well. Here you have Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew recording this show. La Di Da, one of the most influential records ever, or I shouldn't say the record was influential, was more Dougie Fresh and MC Ricky D who later renamed himself to Slick Rick, so you'll see Slick Rick if you Google now. But Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick, MC Ricky D, performing and perfectioning their show, because they didn't make records, they stayed in the streets, in the clubs, and kind of had their jams there. But over the years, they kind of perfectionated their set, and then they put that set on record, and what you ended up with is one of the best records of the 80s, or until today, one of the best ones with La Di Da on the A side, the show. So the show La Di Da just being perfection back then, so many times being sampled or copied. You have Notorious B.I.G. and, well, Puffy, or later on he went to call himself P. Diddy, in their famous song where they changed the words to Biggie Biggie, can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me. That already originated with Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick.
She said, why don't you give me a plane so we can go cruising in my OJ? And if you give me that, okay, I give you all my love today. Oh, Ricky, 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 can't you see? Somehow your words just hypnotize me. And I just love your jazzy ways. Oh, MC Rick, my love is here to stay.
On La Di Da. Anyways, we're getting towards the end of volume 4 here, and you can tell Ed Piskor is setting up the bridge wars between KRS-One and Queensbridge, which later would escalate and escalate up until the late 90s, when Nas and Mobb Deep and KRS-One were battling it out. But that's all being set up towards the end here. That would have come, I think, in a later volume, but as Ed Piskor said, he didn't have the energy to do that anymore. So yeah, it kind of ends here. KRS-One, he wasn't given the chance in the studio that he expected to. Mr. Magic here turning them down, and him leaving all angry, being upset at Magic. And Queensbridge, which is like the neighborhood where lots of famous MCs came out of. Again, later on, Nas, Mobb Deep, so on. And KRS-One being upset at Marley Marl and Magic and others. But that's how it ends. You get the afterword by Bill Adler, and then the cover gallery. Lots of fine art here. Grandmaster Flash, Africa Bambaataa, Dr. Dre, calling Dr. Dre to surgery. All right. I think he regrets that era. You've got Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Ice-T. That lovely picture. Not all of them are in here. That's also what makes you think he probably set something up. You got Biggie on the cover, Tupac that doesn't appear in this book, as far as I remember. MF Doom. Yeah, got Kanye here. Flavor Flav. That's a pretty cool homage cover here. And more covers. And then I think somewhere here you get trading cards as well. Rogues Gallery. Let's see who's a rogue. Frey. Africa Bambaataa. Okay. Anyways. Splash pages that were created for single issue releases. And then you get here MF Doom, some trading cards. That's not Alf. And Ed Piskor with DMC. DMC again. And other legends. Man, rest in peace, Ed Piskor. Got a cool commentary here. Ed making comments about each page, what was behind that, some background, how things unfolded, stuff he couldn't put on the pages. Very detailed, very cool. History, Hip Hop Family Tree by Ed Piskor. And that was my review of Hip Hop Family Tree, the Omnibus by Ed Piskor. I hope you enjoyed this video and me reviewing it. I hope most of the samples I put in here weren't blocked by YouTube. If so, I probably got a warning already about it. But nevertheless, I hope you learned a little bit more. If you've read this book already, let me know what your highlights were. If you haven't, definitely check it out if you're into music in general, especially rap music, or just are interested in this era of time when we switched from disco to rap to hip hop. It is well researched and a cornerstone, a big contribution for the hip hop culture. I can recommend this book to anyone who loves music. I don't want to cause FOMO, but I don't know how fast they'll reprint this when it gets out of print. Let me know if you want to see other related content. But with that, I want to again say thank you for watching. This was Literature and Pictures. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when new stuff is coming out. I have a wide range of content that I want to cover. So there should be something for everyone here, whether that's graphic novels, ongoing series, older stuff, or some movies that we are reviewing here as part of the movie club. Again, a big potpourri of content. Let me know if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see. Again, hit that bell for notifications, and then I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.